Hello, everyone, and I'm glad everybody is with us today. This is Build Your Data and AI Strategy from Vision to Value. I'm Paul Lewis, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Pythian. And I, with my colleagues here, have been doing this for a long time. 30 years in technology across a variety of different industries, very large teams, very large geographies. And we get to spend a good portion of our time and energy with CIOs and CTOs and CISOs and CDOs, even CEOs and their direct reports. We have lots of conversations about implementing the value of AI for each one of those organizations. I'm here with my three most favorite colleagues.
Hey,
Jeff.
everyone. So good to see you. My name is Jeff DeVerter. I'm a Field CTO here at Pythian, working for the illustrious Paul Lewis, and been working in technology for a good long time, as it says there on the screen, with a variety of different cloud hosting providers. Been working with cloud, well, back when it was, even from before, when it was still just that thing that would ruin a picnic, and helping companies go through transformation. And boy, are we going through a transformation now with AI. And I'm really excited to get to share with you today.
Hello, everybody. I'm Karen Pfeiffer, and I'm the Field Chief AI Officer at Pythian, with 25 years of experience in leading data and AI teams in strategy for large media and entertainment corporations such as DirecTV, Comcast, NBC Universal, Hulu, Disney Streaming, and Odyssey Radio. And my specialty is in data and AI, and I agree with Jeff. There is a lot of change going on here. Ernest, to you.
Thanks, Karen. Ernest Allman, Field CTO, part of the great lead team of Pythian. I've been a leader in insurance, healthcare, financial services, expansive portfolio of success on digital transformation and strategic planning with cybersecurity and organization change management. And with that also complemented by 3 certifications, which is CCISO, C-Risk, and CJET. So looking forward to the conversation.
AI is no longer optional. IT executives have the budget and the mandate to implement AI, but of course, many are stuck. While in 2024 and 2025, they did their very best. They roll up their sleeves. They did a whole bunch of experiments, a whole lot of prototyping, and they got a little bit of value. They started with, some workspace Gemini, some Copilot. Then they started to roll their own AI use cases and implement their own models. And some went to production and some received value, but certainly not all of them. The move from 25 to 26 will be a requirement to have actual ROI, to create some actual savings, to avoid some costs in the future, to look at the amount of velocity on an individual person basis. How can I do 8 hours worth of work in 2 hours, right? I'm going to look at volume. How many more assets can I manage with the same amount of people that I have? And now this pressure is ensuring that I have to have a real AI strategy.
Mm-hmm. And the strategy, man, that's where it all starts, right, Paul? So trying to figure out what are those first steps and how people are going to get engaged. And, when you think about it, there's this mandate. You just talked about the mandate from board, from leadership, that CEOs, CIOs, CTOs have to show some progress in AI. It's in all the magazines. It's in all the emails that you get. But, I live out in the country in Texas, and one of the worst things you can find when the sun goes down and you're driving into town is a deer in the headlights, because they're just standing there in the middle of the road. And that's what a lot of CIOs, CTOs look like these days, because now they've got the mandate to go and do it. But what do? What are those first steps that they need to do to get started? And that's really the heart of I call it the secret sauce of what we've got here at Pythian, which is really an outgrowth of the collective thought that we all have had and we've experienced over the past year and a half in helping companies, a lot of them, get started and make real progress and show real ROI with these endeavors.
It's certainly easy to do it wrong. Like, of the 50 workshops we've done over the last year, a good portion of those companies have bought tools. They've chosen tools, they've implemented tools and said, make it so. Enjoy the tools that are now at your disposal. Start creating an investment. And of course, it's not that easy. 70% of that investment needs to be in the people, right? It's got to be change management. It has to be teaching how to prompt. It's about using the tools. It's about ensuring that the way I work tomorrow is different than the way I work today. That's got to be 70% of the effort. 20% still is the tools, right? I have to make those tools available. Sometimes those tools are for developers to code using AI. Sometimes it's for an end user to be more productive in building documents or slides. Sometimes that's for a data scientist or an analyst to create better visualizations. Those are tools at their disposal to do that. And then finally, 10% on the actual models themselves. And I'm not saying roll your own. Sometimes this is just simply using the right model for the right use case. If we look at the maturity, let's start there. Where are we in 2025 in sort of the Gartner hype cycle? You notice that the 2025 model looks relatively close to 2024, which looks relatively close to 2023. Sure, there's been lots of evolution, lots of news, lots of change within the AI market, but sometimes that change creates turmoil, right? Sometimes that change creates confusion. Sometimes that change just in the names of the tools themselves create a churn or a change management issue in my ability to deliver sort of AI value and AI use cases. And as you know, governance tends to be a follow-through type of activity, but in AI, it really needs to be one of those leading indicators. So we've got to think about how to look at this differently. But it's not just the maturity of the technologies and tools themselves. Sometimes it's the prerequisites. And this problem has been true for years. It was true in 2010 when I tried to do things like analytics. And my data was messy and siloed and all over the place. And when I tried to do machine learning, my data was still messy and still siloed and still all over the place. And now when I'm trying to do AI, it's even worse. The bigger ball of yarn, there are more strings. My data is still messy and siloed and all over the place. So how do I make this business data ready?
You know, Paul, that's right. In fact, we are seeing that 70% of leaders cite data quality and governance as their number one technical hurdle. And we found that AI is only as good as the proprietary data it can access. We often hear that phrase, garbage in and garbage out, and nothing is more true now in the age of generative AI. In fact, most leaders, around 85% of them, admit that they must upgrade their existing IT infrastructure before AI can truly even be plug and play, and that they need that for success and to accelerate with a strong data foundation.
Over the last year and a half, we have done 50 workshops. A good chunk of them are education, a good chunk of them are use case creation, a good chunk of them are looking at the prerequisites, but all of them include strategy. And during those conversations, we've really honed into the sort of three big important strategies and the appropriate outcomes to support that. And purely by coincidence, it just so happens that we have the three experts on the webinar right now to address those actions.
What a coincidence indeed.
Jeff.
Yeah. So as Paul's talking about, we've got these workshops, and it is plural because we have workshops that help start the conversation in an organization with AI. We have ways to go and engage in workshops about the infrastructure and about the data and about the ethics and reliability and the risk that's associated with these projects. But how do you get started? Remember the whole deer in the headlights. There's a lot to think about. So in that very first workshop, it's really broken down into two primary areas. We spend the morning going through education and making sure we're all spelling AI the same way. And in the afternoon, we get into understanding two primary things. The first is we take a look at the overall infrastructure and tools and systems and policies that are in place to enable really any sort of technology transformation inside of an organization. Now, once we all agree on that, and the folks in the room, by the way, as executive leadership, IT and IT leadership, as well as representation from the business, because you got to bring all those folks together. This AI prompting stuff touches everything. And then what we do is we go through a series of really prioritizing use cases, AI use cases that they bring to the table. They thought about it, they submit them to us, they think of them as the day goes on. And we go through the process of helping we do two things. It's a technical discovery and prioritization process. 50% is that. Well, maybe 80% is also therapy, because we have people in the room who oftentimes have butted heads when, business looks at IT as the no factory, and IT looks at the business like they don't know what they want or what they even need. And that we bring them together and have a conversation so that IT understands the business needs and the business understands the constraints that exist on the IT side, and all sorts of things show up. Sometimes we tell them, these are great ideas. You shouldn't do any of them. Your data's a mess. You've got issues around your policies and your risk. But ultimately, we get everybody on the same page. We're marching in the same order. We've looked at these use cases. We've whittled away the things that aren't AI. There's a lot of them when they come to the table, because remember, they're filling those out before we've even defined and gotten into what is actually AI. And then we figure out what the prioritization path is. We understand where the roadblocks are. And oftentimes those roadblocks show up in the data.
What we really like about these workshops is they tend to be objective, right? So we will objectively talk to you about what words mean, right? How machine learning is distinctive from AI, and how the varying types of machine learning affect the kind of decision making you're going to make in each one of those use cases. One of the most important outputs of this workshop exercise is the actual strategy itself, your AI strategy, and it's really in 5 parts. First part is, how much money are we willing to spend, right? What's the mandate from the board or the CEO? Is this a $100 exercise or a $100 million exercise? And then where are you going to spend that time? Are you going to create and invent a new practice? Are you going to buy tools and technologies? Are you going to partner with other organizations? That's where I'm going to spend the millions of dollars. Next thing I want to do is, who gets to make that decision? Do I have an AI council, as an example? Do I have to build AI policy to support the end user tools and techniques available to them? Do I need to make architectural decisions? And who gets to make those architectural decisions? And then now I have 52 cards in my spending deck. Where do I put that money? Do I put that money in education? And sometimes this is just creating learning paths from the chairman of the board all the way to administrative staff. They need to learn different things and how to use these tools in front of them. And then do I put some of these cards in build, where I'm building out use cases using external models or tools to things like coding from a development perspective? Or do I put my money in using the embedded functions of the software I currently use? This might be my ERP or my CRM or my ITSM tools. The good part is that a good portion of the ROI will come from the embedded nature. This likely is coming almost directly from the productivity tool set. I'm using Google Workspace and slides and documents, and I'm creating value within the tools that I use every single day. One could argue productivity is 80% of most of the things that I do on a weekly basis. And the value I can create in that world, where I'm creating a velocity. What I used to be able to do in 8 hours, I can do in 2 hours. I can rethink about where I spend my time sort of on the strategy front. Faster ROI is better with the embedded AOI, but of course, that's only true if I've resolved my data-based issues. And good news, that's where Karen's expertise happens to be.
Thanks, Paul. I agree. Data strategy and governance needs to be your foundation and focus to help accelerate AI, to be that force multiplier that you and your team and company are looking for. When you think of this across these 3 pillars of technical assessment, strategizing, and data readiness, then that formula gets easier. So the core outcome here is to build that trusted, well-governed data foundation to confidently scale your AI programs. So first, we conduct technical assessments to ensure data infrastructure are clean, secure, and then ready to scale. It's very important. That foundation is important. Then next, you meet with a strategist, such as a chief AI officer, to help establish clear AI use cases and that strong governance framework as well for the teams to follow. And this framework must cover insights, quality, access and security across the organization. It's not just a one team game here. It truly is every part of the organization needs to be a player in this. And then finally, it's about enabling AI data readiness with that modern architecture fit for AI, for accessibility, for reliability, and that value that you need. And so remember, though, that a defined data strategy is that absolute prerequisite for successful and scalable AI adoption.
So deal with your AI strategy, deal with your data readiness. And I assume, Ernest, now you need to deal with the AI risk.
Absolutely right, Paul. I think since we're talking about all the workshops that we've conducted over the past year as well, we continue to have executive conversations. And really, the big elephant in the room always seems to have some common themes. Is our data really ready for what AI demands? And I guess if you don't have it, or we would collectively agree that you're not heading for innovation, you're really heading for a disaster at that point in time. So just like all the old days, if you remember, back in 2010, 2012, we used to say, well, let's implement Agile, but you can be fragile very quickly. Or we would say at this point in time with AI is garbage in and intelligence accelerated in the wrong direction. But we also continue to hear a few other things as well, which is legacy systems hanging by a thread, so which increases a significant amount of risk. Integration, that nobody wants to own, that also contributes to that increased risk. And then we speak of pipelines. So if somebody, we're in cough and cold season, somebody coughs, just like a deer in the headlight, is what Jeff said, your pipeline absolutely breaks, and we have no idea what the undocumented code that there is in the organization that nobody understands. However, I think I would say is from a positive core perspective of adoption is the ultimate outcome, and having employees use safe embedded AI solutions, which truly maximize your investment. So if you remember, we used to say, oh, data is the new currency, but now I think we collectively can say trust as the new currency. So the CEO is no longer looking at responsible AI. They're looking on all aspects of ethics, bias mitigation, security, and it's not really just a compliance checkbox, but it's really a revenue protector. So it's a significant strategic shift in that leadership mindset. So with that, how do you kind of manage that risk? So there's the whole view about risk identification and mitigation, but really it's the ethical AI policies at your organization, the regulatory adaptation. So with a global landscape with AI regulations tightening, the strategy has to include privacy by design. So that avoids costly legal setbacks, brand damage. But really, in summary, I think I would say is responsible AI shouldn't be viewed as a hurdle or a setback. It needs to be part of the rollout. So what does that give you? It not only mitigates risk for the business while accelerating adoption, it manages risk from data privacy breaches as well, reputational risk as well. But more importantly, I think the core aspect is it's establishing ethical practices that you're going to ensure your employees use safe solutions to maximize your AI investments. So Jeff, I'm going to hand it back to you. But as we as a team have been conducting all these workshops, what was your insights to risk as well?
I think I grabbed two. The first is a lot of times we think about risk and compliance. We think about things that are going to slow us down. And what we find is when you do this appropriately, it doesn't slow the process down. It actually enables the process. By setting even an appropriate AI policy in place that gives the boundaries as well as the runway for individuals to then go and utilize the appropriate tools in the appropriate way, well, then that's where you really start to see a snowball effect of capability. And when you don't do that kind of stuff, you find things like, people will use the tools. They're using it at home to plan vacations. They want to use it at work to plan a project. But if you don't set the right rules and enablers in place, then what you find is that people will bring their personal GPTs to work and start throwing company data into the personal GPT. Sounds like, hey, this is a go-getter. We should applaud this person. not so fast, because the rules, the acceptable use inside of these policies inside of the GPTs tend to, if you're just putting that stuff in a personal account, could be used for training data. I would hate to think somebody put their corporate data in for training data. And then secondly, the response, depending on the GPT, could thereby be owned or seen as IP owned by the GPT itself. So it's kind of a big deal.
And the risk there, of course, is wrong answers. We recently went to a workshop where they rolled their own model that was trained on 2022 data. And they're asking 2025 questions. And it became very clear very quickly that they were getting wrong answers and therefore making wrong strategic decisions and potentially even wrong tactical moves on a quarter-by-quarter basis. That is a clear potential risk. The other one that we were all involved in recently was the risk of a poor architectural decision. Yeah. As we know, data by its very nature tends to be a centralized architecture, right? Where there's a data lake and a data warehouse and a lake house, and you integrate, you pipeline those source data into your warehouses and lake houses, so you can use it to derive insights, create a semantic layer, and you have a bunch of consumers to consume sort of that semantic content. But AI, by its very nature, tends to be decentralized or federated. You don't want to move the data to the model, you want to move the model to the data, right? Use cases need to have a highly discrete function that is likely only looking at a subset or a single source of data to create value, which is why the embedded functions of AI, the ones that exist in the everyday systems, either in your collaboration tool, your CRM, and your ERP, will have a much higher ROI, much more effective to the business, because they're closest to the data, they're closest to the user, they're closest to the process, they're closest to the function, and they already deal with the identity and access management needs of the company holistically. So you have to think of architecture as yet another one of those risks that needs to be considered. It's not just, extend the data warehouse. It's think of it as a program of tools and technologies and architectures versus a single program, technology, and architecture. Right. The year ahead will go faster, right? You expect.
Not slowing down.
Well, often we hear from customers that it takes months or quarters or years to deliver on these AI strategy, and they might even have a 3-year strategy. The problem, of course, is that in 3 years, there's been 6 different innovations happening, right? They're 6 different tools, 6 different, hundreds of different models available. Use cases have exploded. So you have to think of it as a sort of a much smaller world in a bite-sized setting. Good news is we've done 50 of these workshops. We're happy to do several more with you in the webinar in order to hone both the education, what words mean, and the use cases and what makes sense for the highest ROI. We will then help assess your data state and data analytics platform to see what remediation needs to be put in place, what prerequisites should be true in order to build some of these use cases. We'll help you with the actual deployment. So building out those use cases from a machine learning to AI agentic workflow perspective. And then, of course, the skill set to operate it after the fact. Once these use cases go into production, once models in production, then you have to worry about what happens when it goes bump in the night, right? At 3 a.m., you have the skill set and expertise to deal with these changes. And then more importantly, if in fact a change is required. So if I implement a production use case that is 85% accurate and only deployed to a single distribution center, what do I need to move the needle to make that 95% accurate? And then send it to 15 distribution centers. And then what happens with the second and third and fourth use case? Do you have the skill set to create the data pipelines, the machine learning pipelines, and the AI pipelines to go ahead? Pythian is here to help you navigate that journey. We will help you define those AI use cases and training employees and how to use those embedded tools, or just simply to learn how to prompt, all the way through to managing those models and managing the risks and security of going into production. And of course, we have the team that you've met, Jeff DeVerter and Ernest Solomon, Karen Pfeiffer. We're here to make this a much easier transition from amazing set of ideas to actual investment and return.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time, and we're here. We're just a phone call or an email or an IM or a LinkedIn buzz away. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.